All right, welcome to another episode of Personality Typing with Habib. Today, we're going to be covering Professor Jiang, who is a teacher from China who went to Yale, and he's also known as Jiang Xueqin. I think that's how you say it. But yeah, he's not actually a real professor, so I should say that. He is a teacher, though, um, at least from what I gather. And as usual, no type accuracy guarantees, though I feel pretty good about this one. And we'll talk about it. So before that, there's an overview of what we're going to be covering in this video. We're going to be doing a small recap of the previous episode, but then we're going to dive right into first impressions of Professor Jiang here. And I'll call him Professor Jiang. He's very much that. You'll see in his type. It's basically it, right? But so we'll be going over the clips, and that's the bulk of this, right? Because we're just trying to understand where he's coming from a personality psychology perspective. Like, this person gained a lot of traction. What type does that? And then we'll be getting the final guess for what I think his type is. And then we'll be previewing the next episode, which should be fun too. So, we got our chain of events going on here. And so previously on Live Informal Typing, we had Liam Cunningham, who was on Game of Thrones, possibly my favorite character on Game of Thrones. So that was like my FI, wanted to do that one. And I'm not sure about every single coin, but I think he is in the ballpark of an ENFP. Otherwise, maybe INFP, but I think that's close enough. And I'm pretty confident about the panda animal stack: consume, sleep, play, blast, last, number 4, social type. But yeah, it's possible he's MF instead of MM. That can be a little bit tough to tell. But yeah, so I feel very good about that one. Give that one a watch, especially because compared to today's class, there's a big juxtaposition of how Liam Cunningham approaches history and the way that Professor Jiang will approach history. Professor Jiang has a channel called Predictive History, as we'll see. And so let's get into the first impressions. So here we go, and I promise you it's not racism or anything, but we got some Asian people, some East Asian people here. The only person here who's not actually typed by the objective personality system in terms of Dave and Shan is tech lead here. But, the community has speculated this person's type, as well as I've speculated his type to be something like a number 1 ISTP jumper. So basically that is what I'm reminded of with Professor Jiang here. He comes off like that math teacher, like a real one that can teach, a blasting, someone who's good at explanations, good at showing you why something matters, and the nerdy side of it, the intellectualism. So yeah, these are the people I'm reminded of, and a little less so the people on the bottom. I put Andrew Tate there with his whiteboard because these people love their whiteboards, right? And I mean that, as respectfully as one can. But yeah, so very much reminds me of Eddie Wu, tech lead, David Chalmers, and yeah, Ocean Vuong, and INFJ jumpers. So they're NITI instead of TINI. So that's Jeffrey Hinton and Andrew Tate. But it is that beta quadrant and that specific animal stack too, like the sleep blast, though I think Chalmers might be play last or something. But yeah, anyway, there's a slight variation there. But basically it's that NT very compressed, so high compression, the nerdiness, the intellectualism, the concepts are boiled into their essence enough to present. That's why the whiteboard is so conducive to their explanations, because the concept is narrowed down very, very much. And that's actually something that I took away from this typing and this type so much, is you want to boil your concepts down to the smallest possible unit so that you can explain to people and you can explain to yourself. And it actually helps you sleep at night because your theories aren't this weird mumbo jumbo. It's actually a very understandable situation there. So that's something that we can walk away from with these types, you know. So yeah, Professor Jiang, in these interview clips, we'll have 5 videos that we're actually going to watch, a little bit of, you know, there'll be clips. And yeah, so the first one, there's a bit of a jump scare. There's going to be like a picture of Netanyahu on the thumbnail, so that's your warning. But we're going to get right into it just to get to know Professor Jiang here. He's going to have opinions about the war, and he's made a lot of predictions about a lot of things. So let's check it out.
Welcome to this special edition of a live stream of the Jimmy Dore Show, because we have a special guest with us. That's the whole point of it. Professor Jiang is a Beijing-based educator, writer, and advocate for education reform, known for his work in promoting creativity, critical thinking, and global citizenship in Chinese schools. He holds a bachelor's degree in English literature from Yale University, and he gained international attention in 2024 for his viral prediction about foreseeing Donald Trump's return to power and the U.S.-Iran conflict and the U.S. losing that war based on historical patterns and game theory. Welcome to the show, Professor Jiang. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jimmy. I'm a huge fan of your show. I've been watching for like 5-6 years now.
Wow, I'm very flattered. That makes me feel good. I'm completely enthralled with your videos and explanations of what's happening with the Iran war. It's really kind of mind-blowing. I've learned so much already in a short time just watching you. And could you just give us a update now? Here we are, March 10th, Tuesday. Where do you see with the state of affairs?
Right. So I made a prediction that the United States would start a war with Iran in order to maintain empire. And that's exactly what's happening. Right now, America is an empire in decline. And we can tell because 5% of white American girls in their 20s are on OnlyFans. Young people are broke. They try to make money on by gambling in cryptocurrency. There's massive inequality in China. There's massive inequality in America. Congress is deadlocked. Politicians no longer represent the best interests of the people. America has become an oligarchy. The US dollar has debased in value. And so these are all the signs of an empire in decline. Another sign is an empire lashes out against the world. So the empire engages in these silly, pointless wars in order to maintain hegemony through force and violence. And we saw that most clearly, most vividly in January when Delta Force went in to kidnap Maduro, a sovereign president of a sovereign nation, and that goes against international law. And now what we're seeing in Iran is the same situation where America is desperate. It's trying to save the petrodollar. And to do that, they're trying to knock out Iran and impose a government that's much more friendly to the interests of American empire. And that's what's happening today.
I mean, but how this seems to be destroying the petrodollar. Am I wrong? What am I missing, Ed?
Yeah, so that was very good to just get an intro into who he is and how he talks and what functions he's using. You know, we're going to get to the NT sleep side of things, but it was nice to get a little bit of a ping of where his extroverted functions are, SE and FE, in terms of talking about girls using OnlyFans and people in general gambling, you know, all the people, you know, whatever. It feels even weird for me to say it because it's like, who's using OnlyFans? Everybody, you know, I don't know. I would not recommend, but anyway, you see, I feel weird. I have SE and TE, but he's comfortable to say that because he may have SE and FE functions. So he's very comfortable with the weird stuff, but gambling and cryptocurrency and all these things is one of the things he's seeing. And he's also able to see Trump, you know, because he might be someone in that beta quadrant, you know, as I was saying for my first impressions. And so, yeah, I mean, we're still going to get to know Jiang a bit more, but he is starting to become this authority because he's able to boil down not only history, but really the future of how unpredictable Trump is with that, you know, NT sleep last. Everyone's like, what is going to happen tomorrow? We need to be able to get ahead of this somehow. And then you have, someone like Jiang here, and there are other people. There's all kinds of people who are making their own predictions, but this seems to be like this guy has hit the algorithm, but not just the algorithm, but his actual explanations are, catching a lot of this stuff before it happens. Like he predicted the Iran war. Not a lot of people did, but some people did. But he's getting credit for it. And yeah, so we still have a lot more to go. But clip number 2, we're going to start to see, okay, so if he is beta quadrant, like where is his TI? How does he talk about ideas? And then where is his consume? So we saw a little bit of, him mentioning the Iraq war, or maybe he will in this clip, but that would be like the ST consume side, is the history side of it. But here, I'm already hinting at consume last. So that's like, the issue with consume last people is that their information sources are going to be very limited to like the Bible or one book, one source, one guy. And the other thing to point out from the previous clip was that there was a decider weirdness in the beginning of like putting too much respect in one guy. That guy, he watches Jimmy Dore. Anyway, let's move on to the next coin and see how it goes with where is his consume and where is his TI.
When I was at Yale, I was a poor person. I have absolutely no idea how power works. So I believe in the complete opposite, where the world is run by ideas. So be able to produce the best ideas somehow, naturally, I don't know how, but somehow naturally, you flow into positions of power. And so the world is run by a hierarchy of ideas. And the people at the very top are those who have the best ideas. And people at the bottom have the worst ideas. And so it's a meritocracy. And like being at Yale, and Yale prided itself on the surface, ostensibly, as being like that. It's not really like that. But like, I didn't know anything. I was naive, and I was very thankful that I got a full scholarship to study at Yale. So I believe like this is how Yale works, and this is how the entire world works. And as you can imagine, I was in for a shock and surprise when I actually went out into the world and recognized that that's not how the world works, man. It's all guanxi. It's all who you know. And so for about 10 plus years, I became very depressed. I became very angry because, I put myself in the classroom at Yale. I didn't get into Skull and Bones. I didn't become a Rhodes Scholar, but in the classroom, where it's almost a gladiatorial combat of ideas. I mean, like I was a very proficient warrior. I mean, I had some very interesting things to say in class, and so my professors, I was, they thought very highly of me, and they were actually pretty confident that I would be successful in life. And so I go out in the world, and then it's one failure after another failure. I failed as a journalist. I failed as a teacher. I couldn't really find employment. I became extremely frustrated. I became very angry, and that forced me into a deep depression. Which, by the way, today I'm very thankful for, because it really shocked me, traumatized me into reimagining how the world works. And I don't think that without that sort of like 4 or 5 years of outright depression, of just sitting at home and feeling sorry for myself and hating the world, it was not possible for me to resurrect myself and have a more nuanced and subtle understanding of the world. And I know this because I have a lot of friends who went to Yale, Harvard, and Princeton, and they're very successful people, very wealthy. And like when we start talking about like world events, about Donald Trump, about Vladimir Putin, about this war in Russia, about the worst war in Iran, they don't get it, man. But there's still stuff in this CNN, New York Times mindset in that, Trump is just deranged, and after he leaves office in, 3 years, I mean, like he'll still be around for a long time, right? But once he leaves office, things will go back to 2020. Things will go back to normal. And also it's possible that the Democrats win the midterms in November, and then he'll be impeached. And then we'll go back to normal. This war in Iraq will work, and we'll go back to normal. Don't worry, we'll go back to normal. So they have their heads in the sand. And you know what? I'll be honest with you, I feel sorry for these people, because the world as it is, the way the world is going, I don't think that they are psychologically equipped to survive.
It's pretty scary, man. I want to pick up on journalism.
Yeah, that was a good clip there to see that, who knows about consume last? Who knows about head in the sand? It is actually going to be the people who have consume last who know how bad it is to be consume last, the archetype of it. And so he was talking about this introverted energy that he had, and that was this forced depression. I think Dave's talked about this, a number of times. And it's this forced, Batman cave, or whatever, the Batman thing, right? Of your forced introversion, your forced depression, where that is now hitting you with bigger truths that most people are not really going to find or discover because they're successful in their work, or they're doing well in their job, and they're never going to confront the bigger truths. They're just going to deal with, oh, what's the mainstream media telling me? Let me just go with that. I'm okay for now. And people are positioned such that they're able to put their head in the sand. That's their luxury. The luxury is to have your head in the sand. And so you're not going to see it. And so it's the articulation by someone who is consumed last, who knows best how bad it is to just not ignore everything around you. And yeah, I thought that was really good. And the beginning part of this clip was just illustrating the TI side of things. So, seeing the world as a hierarchy of ideas, like that is the dream of TI, is like the person with the best idea, the meritocracy. That's what he was hoping for. He found out that it wasn't the case, right? But he was hoping the world is built on TI. That's because in that way, his saviors would win, his functions would do well. But that's not what he found. So yeah, that was just a very good clip. I mean, with any of these, you can kind of prove the whole type, but we're just gonna keep moving here. Specifically in this clip, we're gonna be looking at the concept of NI, or introverted intuition, because Professor Jiang here is going to be able to explain a concept. He's going to talk about Plato's allegory of the cave, and it's going to be very much in the way that you would expect someone with introverted intuition to explain it, because I couldn't explain it very well. I'd go into all kinds of random details. Maybe I could do it. I don't know. Sure. But it would be tough. But he's able to explain this, and he's going to build on that. He's going to use that analogy and build on that. And we're going to see a series of clips here from his actual lectures from his YouTube channel, Predictive History, which climbed to 2 million subscribers, in a very short time, in just like the last year or two. So why is it resonating? Because he's actually kind of boiling down the essence of some pretty big things. And this is just a concept, right? It's not pointing the finger at anyone in particular. It's just a powerful concept. Let's see how he explains it.
Today, I want to look at 3 questions. Why did this war between the United States and Iran start? How will this war end? And what will happen after this war ends? And to answer these 3 questions, we need to discuss the nature and structure of our reality. And the first thing you need to understand, which is very hard, is that our world is a hallucination. It's a collective fantasy, all right? So to understand this idea, let's look at Plato's allegory of the cave, okay? Plato's allegory of the cave. And so in this cave, we're deep inside the earth, and it's dark. There's some light coming in, but not much. And we're all chained in a line together, okay? And there's about 1 million of us. We're on the floor, and we're chained to the ground. And we can't really move. We can't get up. We can't move around. Even our necks are shackled. So we can't turn around and see the world around us. Okay, so there's about 1 million of us all sitting down and staring at a wall together. Okay, and this wall is blank. Behind us is great fire. And there are people around this fire, okay? We don't know who they are, but they are free to move around. And what they do is this: they take puppets and then they reflect the puppets onto the wall, creating shadows. And we're mesmerized by these shadows because before we're staring at a blank wall, and now there are these moving shadows. And we think these shadows are real because we don't know any better. So we give them names. Okay, we give them names and we create a language in order to tell stories about these shadows. And this becomes really our collective reality, okay? So another way of saying this is that reality is a collective conscious which is really a hallucination. Okay? All right. So there's certain things about this reality that we need to keep in mind. Okay? So first of all, what's really important to understand is that what creates this reality is our conscious, our imagination, our perception. Not anyone else, us, okay? So in other words, the wealth in the society is our consciousness. The amount of thought we put into something. And so let me give you an example. Let's just say that I were to ask you to make a vase.
Okay, he's gonna definitely get into that. We're gonna cover a clip that comes back to this. So what this was really good for is I kind of got lost in the NI of it all, of like, wow, this is like explaining the shadows, the darkness, you know, of the pattern of someone controlling, you know, the strings behind you. And yeah, it's something that, you know, it's a concept that's very powerful. It's applicable to a lot of things. You know, you could call it the media, you could call it, you know, the government, you can call it, you know, whoever you want, the elites, you know, not that, or the parasites, right? Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do with that. And then once you're able to explain that concept and understand it, it's such a powerful thing to leverage for multiple situations. That way you're not, you know, the one with the neck shackled, you know, just looking at one thing without seeing what's behind you. So yeah, the next clip is going to be, so that was just to kind of like nail down the NI side, because Plato's allegory of the cave, it's useful concept, but like you have to be able to use it for, you know, what are you doing with that? And I could talk about it too, but it's going to be a lot more convoluted possibly, or there's going to be a lot more work that I'm going to have to do to apply it. But for him, it's like very fast and swift to just incorporate this concept in a deep way, in a simple way. It's really the simplicity, you know, introverted intuition, you know, people who have it higher up, they're able to simplify things a lot faster, a lot quicker with higher frequency. That's one of the things I'm doing in typing is what's the frequency with which you are doing this function? And I can do NI, but it's going to be with a lower frequency. That's the physics of it. So that's like an insight there, you know. But yeah, so in this one, we're going to be seeing a little bit of the SEFE with the TINI. So we're going to start to get towards this ISTP jumper situation, right? It's better to know what the type is a little bit so you know what you're looking at, what you're listening to. But you can stay loose on that concept if you want. But this is going to be deeper into that video and explaining a little bit more behind the scenes of how, you know, the governments and the big countries, how they're using, you know, their tactics to control the global and the world, basically. Yeah.
In the status quo, then you have to spread this system as well. Okay, and then you also need to justify this system, and you do that through 3 transnational systems, 3 transnational organizations, and these are, okay, first, of course, is intelligence. What is intelligence? Spies, okay? Their job is to infiltrate other nations' elites and co-opt them into this system. That's what their job is, okay? That's what intelligence does. Then you have crime. Crime just engages in the most profitable enterprises, which includes, of course, drugs, human trafficking, and something called money laundering, okay? And this is a way to incentivize the global elite to work together. Okay, so that's the first two. And then there's one more mechanism called science. Now you think that science is about pursuing the truth. No, it's not. Okay, science is fundamentally about finding evidence to justify and protect the status quo. Okay, that's why science is fundamentally materialistic. Okay, all right, and what? So so we have to remember, like, this system is trying to create values, right? And these three major values is something called the open society. Okay, what's open society? It's just basically globalization, multiculturalism, DEI, right? Diversity is good. Why is it good? Because it's good. We don't know. It's good. Okay, do you understand? They never provide a reason, but it's always, well, you don't believe it, it means you're a racist, which is bad. Okay, so open society. Second is the idea of privatization. Okay, or what we call neoliberalism or free market, meaning that governments suck at what they do. Therefore, you should allow private entrepreneurs to control everything. Okay, and this idea of neoliberalism. Again, there's not much evidence to support this, but if you don't believe this, it means you're a communist, okay? Which is bad, by the way. And the last thing, of course, is consumerism. Okay? So consumerism is just like,
yeah, he does a good job with all these explanations. You can check out his videos. I'm going to link them in the description, but I'm sure you've seen them around because the algorithm is definitely helping him out a bit, or not, I don't know. But yeah, it's very good, I think, to sum up these systems that are happening in the form of NI and TI, because they are logical, logical blocks that fit together like puzzle pieces. And it's very efficient. And so he's able to see and track this efficiency and able to make predictions about it, like the Iran war and Trump winning, and, the continuation of how things are going to go. You don't have to be surprised by the headlines because everything is predictable. Who else thinks everything is predictable? All right. So everyone is building their own prediction engines because humans can be smart, can be intelligent. Everyone can be as intelligent as Professor Jiang here, but you have to work at it and you have to be very disciplined and you have to have a system, and we can kind of do this too. But as far as the SEFE is concerned, like, you heard about this open society, this privatization, the whole area when he was saying, oh yeah, communism is bad. Like, he can read the SF vibe, the SF play vibe of like how people feel about communism. It's like, it's bad, right? Remember, that's the culture. That's the culture. Like, you can see the culture very easily with those SE and FE functions, even if you have them third or as a daemon, if you have them lower in your stack, as long as you have those functions, you can see the culture. You can see consumerism, right? And yeah, this is all brilliant stuff, but I'm not really here to analyze all this. I'm here to just type Professor Jiang here and say that, he's a pretty good guy to watch, because I'm not trying to type weirdos for the most part, unless some of them I might, but I'll let you know. And my opinions of people can change. But for now, let's learn about wealth a little bit. This is a 1-minute clip from the earlier part in this lecture, but it's a different video. It's short. So let's go see him use the TI and NI functions, possibly in a savior state, which just means you have it higher up in a higher frequency within your brain.
the wealth in a society is our conscious, the amount of thought we put into something. Let me give you an example. I were to ask you to make a vase to sell. While you're making this vase, if you're not fully conscious about making this vase, it won't be very good. But if you are completely focused, then this vase will be beautiful and therefore more valuable. This reality is structured to extract our consciousness in order to create wealth for the elite. Historically, there have been different mechanisms that you can use in order to to extract and store wealth. So you have maybe religion, pyramids. Pyramids in Egypt are able to focus your attention and motivate you to do certain actions. Another form of capital, of course, is the idea of stories, which is able to focus people's attention and drive them to great things. Then you, of course, in today's world, you have Bible, US dollar, artificial intelligence. There's actually a war going on for the soul of humanity between US dollar, the old world order, and artificial intelligence, the new world order.
Yeah, so you can very much see that he's just, boiling everything down to its most simple component of like, what is the intellectualized compression of the valuable things, right? And then, consciousness, you got to pour consciousness into that. And the wealthy people are deciding what's valuable here and there, and he's keeping track of that. So what I'm seeing is that he has TI very high up and NI as well, very high up. So, but you can even hear the ISTP craftsman, and so that's where I get into the whole decider angle. He's not NITI, he's TINI, which is the little nuance there. You could hear him talk about building a vase, creating a vase. That's a very, perceiver, IP thing to think about, is like you build the thing and then you show people the thing. He's not this NITI magician like Andrew Tate, anyway. So in this clip, we're going to be seeing him with TomTom, who is another ISTP, but a standard ISTP. But they're going to be able to kind of double observe back and forth. Tom Bilyeu is seeing that Jiang is making certain bold claims, and he's trying to see like, hey, some of this is making sense, but how do we talk about it? And so Professor Jiang can talk about it. He does know how to use double observing. Doesn't mean he's right, but you'll see his system of thinking. He's not going off on one particular ideology of like, hey, I'm doing double blind testing, so everything works. It's like, no, use a few different methods. Use a few different methods to prove what you have going on. And so that's what Professor Jiang is going to explain here, of how to double observe, use multiple methods to prove your predictions, or to create a prediction engine that's not built on just one thing. But this is like pretty much a master class in double observing. But you don't have to give him too much credit. It's up to you what you want to think about this guy. I'm not trying to force any opinion here.
Both objectives, and I mean, I know it sounds crazy, so go ahead and ask some questions.
Well, so the big thing is, how much credibility do you put in that this is really a driver, that these different eschatologies, and there's more to talk about, but I think rather than detail out each of the different eschatologies, just to know this idea, you've got Christian Zionists believe one thing that's driving them to make decisions at the nation state level that may have had some influence in us going into the area, may have some influence in whether we are allies with Israel or not. Then you've got extremists within Israel that believe in things like the Greater Israel theory, and they want to take over more land, and they want to actually piss people off, and they want this war of Gog and Magog, which would be great if because there's a theory about what current nation states are Gog Magog, and they're both in play right now. And so understanding that would be useful. And then like people will at least have the package from which to understand where we'll go from here, but understanding whether you think this is a primary driver, whether you think this is just a fringe theory, and how much of this you actually think has predictive validity.
When I do predictive modeling, I'm looking at different theories. And when these different theories converge together, I can make a pretty accurate prediction. Okay, so there are three major theories that I look at when I make predictions. The first theory is game theory, which is I just look at the different interests of the different nation states. Okay, that's game theory. And I look at historical patterns, which is like, how do empires behave as they decline? And so I look at Rome, I look at the British Empire, I look at different historical instances of empires in decline. The third thing is I look at eschatology, I look at religion. And why eschatology is important is that it's a script for people to follow over the centuries, and they can slowly build towards this script, okay? So when I do these three things, when I look at eschatology, when I look at game theory, and when I look at historical patterns, then I'm forced to conclude that they will eventually destroy the Alexeic Moss and force the war of Gog and Magog. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to do is explain to you how.
All right, that's enough. But yeah, so basically he has these three different things that are building up to his prediction engine, which is the ST side of the history, the NF side of religious eschatology, which is just the end times predictions or prophecies, and then the NT side of whatever that other thing was, game theory. Yeah. So game theory is kind of like your NTSF game of, just seeing how can you get an advantage given that there are other players in the game. But yeah, that's, maybe too advanced for this video to cover. But you can see that from his double observing, he's not going all in on game theory. He's not going all in on the religious angle. He's not going all in on, the other the historical side. So he's just leveraging all these different concepts to come up with a more predictable, unified theory, so anyway, that's a very TI thing to do. That's double observing in my opinion. And yeah, so it's time to narrow down the guess, because for this video, believe it or not, we're talking about this video to type Professor Jiang. What is his personality type? He gained a lot of traction talking about all kinds of theories and stuff, and it brought a lot of light to certain issues. So what kind of guy is Professor Jiang? So first, we look at some of his YouTube thumbnails, right? And you see he's got a whiteboard or a blackboard, and he's explaining things. He's blasting, comfortably. This is not a consume report. It's not someone who has that consume higher up, but he still comes off like an ISTP sort of, right? And he has both the TI and the NI functions, and he's able to double observe. So, that where does that leave us? So the first initial narrow down is that we have, introverted thinking, and we have extrovert or high energy. So this is not your typical extrovert, not the Myers-Briggs definition of extrovertism, but it is the extrovertism of having high energy expenditure, being able to explain things, being more depressed on the back end, being introverted on the back end, but on the front end, you're explaining things, you're going on all these podcasts, you're going on all these interviews. Do you know how many podcasts I want to do, I want to create, but I'm not doing because I'm blast last? This guy is possibly either consume last or sleep last, right? So we're going to go into a little bit of a different angle with the guessing by just looking at his functions. So if he has introverted thinking and introverted intuition, that takes us to sleep first. And if he has sleep first, is he also blasting or consuming? So we saw too much blast to not guess in the blast direction. And finally, yeah, it's just the beta quadrant of NI and TI. And then we could see that he's extroverted. You combine those two and you get either NI-TI or TI-NI. And then we can basically just get into our final guess. So that's an energy dominant, ISTP jumper. I needed to change that name here. It's actually Jiang, but I got the picture right at least. Double feminine, TI-NI, sleep blast play, consume last. Maybe I can change this real quick. Would that be so bad? I can do that. And then I'll save that. Yep. Yeah, so that's Professor Jiang is ISTP jumper. And then an alternate guess. The only thing I would really change is his social type. If he's not a number 3, he could be a number 1 or number 4. Possibly number 4. I actually saw some stand-up comedy that he tried. So that's an alternate guess. I don't really even know what the social type, what if he's a number 2? So what I really can prove is the actual, the ops type of the 512 type, there's a small chance he's MF instead of FF or something, but yeah, I feel pretty good about him being a similar type to Eddie Wu or Ocean Vuong as well. So that's a double feminine TINI sleep blast play consume last number 3. ISTP Jumper, Professor Jiang. It's been good. It's been a good time to type this guy. And even if you don't agree with anything he says, I think the compression of your intellectual side is something to learn from. You know, I have SETE, so when I look at the TISI folks, I see the compression of data, right? So it's always helpful to look at your opposite type or someone who's doing something different as you. And something for further watching for people who are really interested in the geopolitics side or just want to see an interesting crossover is we have ENFP Tucker Carlson, who's actually double masculine, and Professor Jiang in this interview here. And you can see how both of them, they have completely different functions. The NETE functions versus the SEFE functions. And so this is going to be pretty interesting to watch because they have completely different brains, right? The way their brains connect, the neurons connect, it's completely different from the way the other person's brain works. So it's a pretty interesting interview. And yeah, so that was my final guess. Double feminine TINI sleep last play consume last number 3. Professor Jiang, it's done. And yeah, so in 2 weeks, the next person I'm going to be typing is someone who did interview Jiang, and it's Nico. He's a younger content creator. And yeah, he's just been going through some kind of awakening process. It's very interesting to see this person change from the inside out. So I would give away that he is kind of on the extroverted side. So when you have an extroverted person, how do they go through transformation? That inner transformation that causes them to make a lot of outer changes in their life, and their habits and routines have changed. And so Sneeko, he used to be into all this clubbing and partying and all this, and he used to hang out with like the bad crowd and stuff. And he's very much changing in real time. So that's something really interesting to watch. And of course, people want to judge others, but you know, don't judge others is what I would say, at least for the long term. I don't know, whatever. Judge people if you want. Do whatever the hell you want. But I think it's an interesting journey to watch because he is transforming for real. And that's something that we don't really see in that many people. A lot of people just stay the same year after year, and it's hilarious to watch. But not really. I hope people get better. And there was an interview between Sneeko and Professor Jiang. I thought it was worth watching. But yeah, he's an interesting content creator. And I'm also going to be doing a video on Professor Marandi, who is from the University of Tehran from Iran. And yeah, it's good to get the Iranian perspective because there's so much that we don't see in America and our media and all that without getting too much into it. So Professor Marandi has a lot of interesting things to say, but I'm going to be doing an edited video on that. So it's not going to be part of the live typing series. But Sneeko will be in 2 weeks, so I'll see you then for that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Take care, like and subscribe, and all the good things. Yeah, see ya.